Fuel is the official podcast of the 434th Air Refueling Wing. Join us for airman connections, leadership insights, mentorship, and happenings mixed with some fun and humor. Please understand that the views expressed in this podcast are not necessarily the views of the U.S. Air Force nor the Air Force Reserve, and no endorsement of any person or business is ever intended.
Welcome to the May 22 edition of the Fuel Podcast. I'm the host of this podcast, Chief Nathan Parks. I'm the command chief here at the 434th. And always I have Josh Weaver, Tech Sergeant Josh Weaver from Public Affairs here. So Josh, thanks for joining me.
It feels like forever since we've done one of these, since the UTAs later in the month.
Yeah, so it does seem like we got a lot of distance to it. And we have a good conversation. We had a great conversation last week to build up to this. And so we have Sergeant Douglas from AMDS and Sergeant Tromba from FSS, as well as you and myself, that we have a great conversation about development and what we're looking for here at Grissom, what we, just our four humble opinions on directions that we can go and stuff like that. So we hope that you enjoy that conversation. We're gonna have a little bit more on that, but man, May UTA, get ready for that exercise that we're doing in June. Colonel Curl is taking over the OSS. So there's an OSS Assumption Command, just a great guy. Just if you don't know him, go out there and support him and get to know him. A great individual. And it's also supposed to be 82 on Saturday and 74 on Sunday. So amazing weather. Talk to us about this new thing that you've added to our podcast.
Yeah. So basically, I wanted to add a segment to the podcast that would give us the opportunity to get thoughts from listeners.
Right.
People around the base, the topics or questions that they want, not necessarily just you to answer, but myself included and the guest. And so created this segment called Fuel for Thought.
Yeah.
Spent a lot of time on the name.
It's a good.
Yeah, I know. But basically, so the way that I have it set up is I did a Google Forms, and I will put the link to that when we post the podcast, and the social media post will put the link to that. So anyone can click on that link, and if they have a question or a topic that they want us to discuss, they can type that in. It's 100% anonymous. I don't see any emails, any names or anything. And the best part of this is when we do it, I will be the only one that knows the topic. So any conversation will be completely organic because you or the guest will not know what the topic is.
And most of the time, as you hear me go through these podcasts and stuff like that and kind of facilitate these conversations, is the guests do not know our questions. This podcast that we did this time, I think the guest knew the questions and I did not.
That is correct.
So it was great. Just kind of like you said, I love that organic conversation, not scripted, just ready to go. So is that also a place maybe they can recommend a guest on the podcast?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Anything that you want to recommend for the podcast?
Or a subject.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Or subject. Yeah.
Absolutely. Or maybe a new host. Like maybe we'll take a recommendation, taking applications.
Well, I don't know if we're taking applications, but I will say after this last podcast, I don't know, maybe Sergeant Tromba might be.
Not as hard as it looks.
No, well, no one's looking at it because it's a podcast. But
not as hard as it sounds.
Yeah.
So and you're probably like, that doesn't sound that hard. So it's just conversations. So with that, man, thanks for doing that. And we hope you enjoy the May edition of the podcast. All right, welcome to the May edition of the Fuel Podcast. Today is a little bit different. We were kind of going through some things. We had a person kind of fall out that we wanted to do. We'll do that on another one, but
not fall out.
Fall
when
out.
you lock your knees and pass out in formation.
They were a scheduling conflict.
Yes,
they had a scheduling conflict. So we wanted to try something different, and Sergeant Weaver brought up an idea, and I think it's great. So in here with us we have Sergeant Tromba and Sergeant Douglas and Sergeant Weaver, the Dream Weaver, as always. And so, and myself, Chief Parks, and we're just going to have a conversation. And so we've got a couple different questions that are kind of scheduled, but we're going to let this go where it may. And we've got a little bit of different experiences and rank and everything else. So we'll have a little discussion on where we're at as the Air Force right now and where we're at as Grissom. So first, let's start with, a lot of times, I think people get to know me a little bit on here. And so let's start with you, Sergeant Tromba. Why don't you tell us a little bit about you in like a 2-minute or less version of, hey, here's who I am, and maybe a little bit about your career.
Preferably less.
Yeah.
Yes, okay. So I'm Sergeant Tromba. I am the Wing Career Assistance Advisor. I've been here for about 2 years, and I've been in the Air Force for 12 years. I started as dental, then I became training manager, and now I'm here. Best job ever. So, yeah. Was that short enough for you?
Well, yeah. And I didn't know. What would you say your height stature is at this? Like
I would say that I'm like 5'5". No, I'm just kidding.
5'5".
I'm like 5 feet. My feet are not touching the ground right now before they make that comment.
Yeah.
So.
Answered before we even had to ask the question.
Yeah. All right. All right, Sergeant Douglas, what about you?
Sergeant Douglas. I'm from Chicago. I've been in the Air Force 5 years, going on 6 now. I'm the medical records manager for the base. And I don't know if I want to give my height. Might be people listening to this.
That's all right.
I'm officially 5'10", but I might put 6 feet sometimes.
Yeah, we'll put you on the podcast. You're 6'2".
Yeah.
All right.
I
So
appreciate that.
Can I
edit
be
that out.
5'2"?
No, you're still 5'2".
Absolutely
No,
not.
you stay at
Not
you stay
today,
right
not
where you're
today.
at. That's
I
too
tried.
much of a stretch.
I tried.
Yeah, 6'2" is all right for you.
Yeah,
today.
exactly.
So from Chicago, so
Yep.
not far from home here.
Nope.
And so did you do anything else before you came in the military?
Before I came in the military, I went to college
Yeah.
for about a year.
What was your plan? Like, what were you
So
going to
the
study?
plan was go to college. I majored in sports journalism.
Oh, okay.
The plan, senior Douglas coming out like, I'm going to go to college, be on ESPN in a couple of years, and we're going to be good. And then I got that bill from Kansas, and they were like, yeah, you got to pay this.
So you went to Kansas?
I went to University of Kansas.
All right.
Shouldn't have done no scholarship, out-of-state tuition. So
Yeah. Is there anybody else that we could get on the podcast? Me being a Missouri fan,
Oh,
I
wow.
don't know if we have
That's
Kansas. Like we have certain rules out here.
that's why you got to pre-screen the guests.
That's right.
There was no betting that went on.
What's next? And so I feel like, hey, this is a step, right? As you wanted to be on Sports Center, you're on Fuel. Like it's
Next best thing.
Yeah.
Just one rung below.
Yeah. At you could pick the oddest time at 2:00 in the morning. You know, the 2:17 Sports Center podcast gets more views and listens to, than this. So, but how about you? Did you do anything or did you come in straight out of high school?
Nope, not straight out of high school. So I was one class away from my bachelor's degree. Everybody told me to come in as an officer. And of course, here I am. But yeah, I just decided that being enlisted in the military was something that I really wanted to do. So I was born in Atlanta. My dad worked for IBM, so we lived all over the place. And I was assigned at MacDill in Tampa before this.
Dream, what do you got?
I'm gonna introduce myself too.
Yeah,
Okay.
go for it.
So I'm Sergeant Weaver. I'm in public affairs. I've been in the Air Force for coming up on 11 years. So, past the point of no return now.
Yeah. I'll remind you of that.
Me
too.
But I'm originally from Indiana, from Muncie, which is where I currently reside. It's a nice hour-and-a-half drive for me every day, but still love coming here.
And you guys are both Kokomo right now, so.
Yeah, there's no way. Hour and a half is crazy.
Hey, it's rough. It's rough. Those gas prices are great right now.
Yeah, exactly.
But I drive a Prius, so.
Oh, you good?
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So stand by for cool music. So did you come in straight out of high school?
I went to college for 3 semesters.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, a fun little fact for you. I'm a college athlete. I can say that.
Oh.
I played.
Stand by for a long explanation. Go ahead.
It's not that long. I did play basketball in college, but it was at an NAIA school. It was Indiana University East.
That count.
It does count, but what doesn't really count is that they had a freshman team. And so it wasn't like actually,
Oh, yeah, so
it was
you
just all freshmen.
There was only
6
4 of you.
There were 6 of us.
Everyone made it.
There were 6 of you on the freshman team.
I made it.
Yeah.
There were only 4 people that tried out.
There were 6.
Yeah.
It was a blast though. I mean, if you actually like playing a sport and if you're good enough to go to a school, why would you want to go to a school that maybe you're going to sit on the bench?
Right.
Go somewhere where you're going to play. Like
That's probably what I would say too if I went to a school that only had 6 players.
All right, well, let me just say this. Yeah. If my children are awesome at sports and they have an option between a D1 or a D2 school, if you're going to play, which one are you going to play at?
It's big fish, little pond, right? It's what you want to be. And so I'm a firm believer in big fish, little pond. So in case you don't know, Nate Parks, and
how could we not know?
Yeah, I've been here at Grissom for about 18 months now, which is kind of hard to believe. So May is my 18-month point. I'm originally from Missouri. If you've ever seen the show Ozark, that's where I'm from. I grew up in the Ozarks. I was born in Osage Beach. Grew up on the lake. I went to 7 different schools by the time I was in 6th grade. Sometimes I thought my parents were running from the law. Maybe they had warrants or something, but just so happens my dad was doing construction. And so we moved a lot, which is probably where I get this ability to not ever meet a stranger and always want to learn about people and stuff like that. Joined the military straight out of high school. And I've been in for about 25 years. I've been at every status in the military. So I was active duty, came out, had a short break in service. Like, I think we talked about that. Like 2 days, Jordy said, what the Air Force could have been.
Imagine what the Air Force could have been.
Yeah. And so then I've been a traditional reservist. I've been an ART. I've been in the IRR. And I'm currently an AGR. And so I've been an AGR or part of the full-time orders or AGR for about the last, 10 years or so. So looking back at this, and we take a look at our career, and we're like, you're at the point of no return, Josh, and you're what did you say, 6 years in?
5 years.
5 years in,
Mm-hmm.
and you're how many years in? 12 years in. So 5 years ago, what do you wish you would have done coming into this?
I wish I would have hit the ground running better as far as just knowing the opportunities you have once you get into the Air Force. It kind of took me a while learning from other people who have been in for, 10, 12 years. Like, hey, have you done this? You qualify for this. Have you, just using the fact that you're in the Air Force to just progress your career outside of this. So
you feel like you maybe started a little slow, like that set back and kind of, okay, let me watch and see what everybody's doing.
Yeah, definitely started slow. Thankfully, I had good mentorship. Just them kept hounding me and just telling me, hey, you need to be more on top of this, just outside of the actual clinic, your actual full-time job.
Right.
You need to be making sure you're making strides in other parts of your life.
Some of that starting slow may have been that you spent some time in Kansas. So, I mean, you could chalk some of that up. That's last kid's joke. Just kidding.
Okay.
Just kidding. Yeah, just kidding. What about you?
So I have to completely agree that when I came in, there was no development and training flight. So here's my, shout out to Sergeant Saunders.
Even though he refused to be on this podcast.
Yeah. He's the one who fell out, right? Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yes.
It was one of the fallout.
But yeah, so just the lack of understanding the benefits that come with joining the military. I have people in my office all the time talking about education or talking about retraining, going IRR, getting out, just don't understand the opportunities that are right in front of them. So yeah, my shout out to Sergeant Saunders is because we now are focusing on giving the people the information very upfront. I feel like they come in knowing much more than I did when I joined. I don't know about you, Sergeant Weaver, but.
Well, so when I came in was active duty. So I did active duty for the first 8 years. So we would never have any development and training flight. But I think for me, I don't know if it is a little bit about knowing what was available to you, but also taking advantage of that and focusing on yourself. Because I think at least for the 8 years that I was active duty, I knew that stuff was there, but I didn't necessarily pay attention to it. And so I wish, looking back on that, if you could have just said something to yourself like, hey, these people are telling you this stuff exists for a reason. Mm-hmm. Don't just stay so focused on one thing that you're not looking at the whole picture, because then you get to a point where you're at 11 years or 12 years or semi close to retirement, right?
Yeah.
And close. You look back and it's like, oh, look at all this stuff that I missed.
Yeah. I think for me, it's that I think I was so scared to make mistakes. And so, and like you were talking about, Sir Douglas, is I was so scared to make mistakes that I didn't try stuff that I look back and I'm like, man, I should have tried that. Like, I probably would have been good at that, or at least I would have tried it, you know. And then I'm left sitting here like, oh, I missed that. That didn't come back around, you know. That didn't come back around. And it was, you know, the same way as I think I didn't start slow. I was really quick at getting close to getting kicked out, you know. So I was moving fast, wow. but probably in the, you know, I had some LOCs and some LORs and you know, and stuff like that. But I think I was making mistakes in the wrong area. You know, I wish I would have been more making mistakes, and it wasn't really nurtured that way. It wasn't really caged that, you know, there was, because I was air crew, you know, you make a mistake in it, you get, you know, you may lose your qualification, you may do those things. And so, how do you think that translates now? Like, what do you do differently? Like for me, feeling that way is, I feel like I'm always encouraging people like, hey, have you ever done this? And they're like, no. And I'm like, go do it. And I'm like, well, I'm not that good at it. Who cares?
Yeah, take
like,
risk.
What would take some risk?
Yeah.
Like go out. So I feel like now I'm like an encourager of, and then when people come up and they're like, you know, well, this person, he tried this and he screwed it up. I'm like, don't care. Like, great job. Nice job trying. Like, I'd rather say, whoa, slow down than have to, you know, boot you in the butt every 5 minutes and be like, hey, speed up. Speed up.
Yeah, you can't be upset at someone for doing what you ask them to do, even if they failed at it. Like, who cares?
Or volunteer to do it.
Yeah. And I think, you know, one of the things that I look at is like, I almost tell people those things because I wish I could do it.
Exactly.
But I can't. I'm like, oh, you should do this. I wish that I had the guts to do it.
Yeah. How excited did I got so excited when Sergeant Mitchell or Airman Mitchell was going to the academy.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, so excited, because a part of me is like, what idiot I was. Why didn't I do that? You know, why did I try that?
Yeah.
You know, and now I'm excited. Like, why didn't I go to a small school where there's only 6 kids that I could have played basketball on?
There were more that were on the varsity team. Right. They were a lot taller.
Right.
But so how does that, if we're talking about like where we can talk to other people and like, hey, let's, you know, this would be a good idea or something. I'm too scared to do it. Yeah. But like, how do you, I guess, what would you say to then the person that's not in the military?
Like, that's out there doing. So we talk to my, you know, I'm an 18-year-old son, and I tell him all the time is, hey, dude, take risks now and make mistakes now while you're in this home where we can help you correct them. Right. Because once you get out there in the world, it's a lot harder to correct those things. But we talk a lot about do the things now that you won't have the opportunity to do again. Right. So if an opportunity comes up and you're like, probably won't have this opportunity again, or you start looking at, you know, in 4 or 5 years, I'm going to be married. I'm going to have, you know, maybe start having kids, stuff like that. And that's what I tell them, like, go venture now, go do things now, go do those things now, to where when you can't do it, you're not left sitting like I was, where I'm like, oh, I wish I would have done that. You know, can't do that now. You know, I'm too far in my career. So what do you think you guys, like, do you tailor your, like, as you see people coming in, because you've been in the least amount of time, Sir Douglas, like as you get a new airman over there at AMDS, I mean, do you charge them up and you get them all juiced up? And I
try to get them involved with Rising 6. That's one thing that we do. And also I think the base does a good job. I just don't think it gets taken advantage of enough of extracurricular things that we have around base. Like go out, do Rising 6. Sergeant Roscoe had that game night. Go to that, even if you're not into games.
Which we need somebody to take that over, because he's gone, right?
Right.
That almost sounded like someone volunteered.
Volunteering? Yeah, it sounded like that.
I knew.
Perfect.
We'll talk about it. Like, But as far as just going to it, just go, even if you're not into games, because you're gonna meet people there, and that's just a good opportunity to network and reach out. There's a lot of airmen who get here initially and they work, then they go back to lodging, and you know, they throw Netflix on, call home, and then they wake up and then they're back home. And when you do that, and that's a whole month, right? Because you're coming for 2 days out of the month. that's a whole month where you didn't reach out, you didn't make a new friend, you didn't build connections with anybody.
Yeah, we almost need like a dinner club, like, hey, meet down at the lodging, you know, we're
Karaoke.
gonna do karaoke or
That
dinner
would
club.
be a big hit. Yeah.
I'm not gonna sing. I'll listen.
They're working on like the movie. They're doing the movie nights now where they're going to put the inflatable screen up. They may even show Top Gun. I don't know if that's released yet. So I may have to edit that out, but they're going to try to show the new Top Gun, you know, stuff like, so we're trying to do those things, but yeah, you're right. And it's I always look at that and I'm like, you're the right guy for it. Right. Because you get some old, you know, dude doing it. Like that's what we talked about with the picnic or with the family day. Is I was like, I want somebody young that the music they're playing or the game or something is a bunch of us older people are like, I don't really know that this is what we should be doing.
Right.
And I'm like, that's when we know it's playing well because probably everybody else is enjoying it.
Right.
You know, we're not playing the Beach Boys. We're not playing, you know, whatever.
What's wrong with the Beach
Hey,
Boys?
easy, settle down.
No Willie Nelson.
Yeah, but it's some, you know, that generation. There's a generational gap there, and so yeah, I like that. Encouraging them to kind of get out and do that. You have a lot of people at Sergeant Tromba that come through your office. Every time I come down there, there's somebody different, and part of it's because I think you have snacks there, and part of it was also part of it's also is that I can smell when you start making cookies. Fire department, back off.
Back off.
If you're making cookies, I can smell them, and it draws me in down there. But you have a lot of people. So how does your, you know, thoughts of early in your career when you have someone that's coming in and they're like, this isn't for me, or this isn't, what do you do?
So people come to see me other than cookies and snacks, but so I think people usually around the 6-year mark, I'll say, are in this.
Pay attention, Sergeant Douglas.
They're in this mindset of, look, I haven't been in long enough that I'm stuck, but I'm not necessarily happy where I am. So the way that I look at it is, and I usually say people are always so focused on, you know, my ASVAB scores weren't that well, or I didn't do that well on it. So my thing is, if you could have whatever job you wanted in the Air Force, what would it be? Right. So we usually have that conversation. That's usually where we start. Do you want to be something? Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. Sorry, my hand hit the mic there. Apologize.
Usually we start having that conversation. Do you want to be in medical? Do you want to be public affairs? Do you want to go to maintenance?
Isn't it crazy too, the reaction you get? Like, well, I really want to do this, but I'm in this job, or the recruiter said I was good for this job. And it's like, all the time I tell people is that I used to be a superintendent, I would do a lot of squadron hiring, and I would ask people, you know, what's your best case scenario? And sometimes people were applying for the job in a squadron, and I'm like, we're not your best case scenario. Why don't I use the connections I have and we try to get you to Ohio, or we try to get you to, and they're like, why would you do that? Like, you need a spot here. Because that's what the reserve is about.
Right.
Like, is if that's your best case scenario, let's shoot for it. You know, if that's your job, if that's your best case scenario job, let's go after that.
Right. And that's basically what I try to do for everybody, is let's read. I try to be everybody's biggest hype man, right? Like, go retake the ASVAB, do your CCAF. You can do all of these things. Sometimes you just need that extra little, you know, kick.
What's your favorite story from that? Like, what's your favorite? You don't have to name names.
Gosh, I just have so many. I don't know. I feel like this job in particular, I just have so many good stories because there's so many success stories. We have somebody here actually who, I don't know if they listen to the podcast, but they had 16.
That's kind of hurtful.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. They definitely listen to the podcast.
Wow.
Anyways, so they had 18.
You picked some good guests, Josh. Thanks. Appreciate that. Maybe someone that likes the podcast
No,
next time.
I love the
All right, go
podcast.
ahead.
Anyway,
That's all
so
right.
he had 18 years combined service, but only like 12 years were reflecting on his record. So he came to my office. We had the conversation. He said, I'm not doing another 8 years. I've done 18 years. And a lot of you will probably be like, yeah, she is really annoying sometimes. I will ping, ping, ping until I get an answer, right?
Yeah, squeaky wheel it.
I'm very squeaky wheel. So every day I would contact the Army records, send me, and they would kick back like, no, we need this form. And it was like the day before his ETS. And I called him like, you will give me his records. And they gave it, and we got it updated, and he enlisted and got promoted, and will be able to honorably and rightfully finish out his service. So, I mean, so many stories like that where we just get people where they want to be, or I don't know, it's a great job. And I just love it. And I'm
you got any of
glad
those
to-
stories yet?
I wish. Yeah, she put me on the spot with that one. Being medical records manager, you're pretty much just making sure everybody's actual record that happens outside, whatever you're being seen for, is rightfully being shown in your medical record. That way, when you do get out after those 20 years and you want to get disability from the VA, or you want to seek further coverage for it, we make sure that you're taken care of, because it's like, here, he was seen for it this day, he was seen for it this day, make sure he gets taken care of for that.
That job is never one where someone opens up their records and they're like, oh, look, all of them are here.
Right.
Thank you, Sergeant
exactly.
Douglas.
Yeah.
Right? They're like,
Never.
wait a second.
It's one of those things where it's like this.
I was once near a burn pit near a country, it's like, and then they're like, where is it? Yeah, you can do no right. And it's always wrong, right?
But that's what I signed up for. Like when I was offered the jobs that I was offered, there was medical admin, which I'm doing now. It was like fuels, and it was like another maintenance thing. And I was like, I want to be inside with air conditioning. I'll take the medical job. And then they were like, all right. And I don't care. I didn't care about medical at the time. I just want to be inside. So I get here.
So what's your, and sorry, I'll do this a lot though, but and I'm sorry, but I won't, not really. But so what's your background to where that was your driving force? So, like that you wanted to be inside?
I'm just a city guy. Like I know on this base specifically, we got a lot of like outdoorsy people. Let's go hike. Let's go. I'm the opposite.
Yeah.
Keep me away from.
You're in the right area.
bugs and all that type of stuff. I'm super
cornfield.
city. I'm super
Surrounded by corn.
I want air conditioning on me 24/7, and I just want to kick back. Obviously work, but
Yeah. So I get what you're saying. No.
That was one of those things where I was just like, all right, medical, I'm pretty sure they're inside.
Yeah.
Most of the time, I was right. And once I got here, and then my actual job gets, because medical admin can be a bunch of different things. They're like, you're going to be in the records room, and you're responsible for everybody's.
Yeah, like a wall of records here.
Yeah, and so your first feeling after that is like, what did I sign up for? You know what I mean?
What other air conditioned jobs do you have?
Exactly. Is there anywhere else where I could be? 596.
That's when he comes to me. That's when he comes to me. Gotcha.
Is there an HVAC job where I could just create my own air condition?
Exactly.
He's got like a portable fan attached to his uniform.
I wish I need one of those. But so at first, obviously, you're a little nervous because you're dealing with a lot of people's medical records, and you're affecting people. Money, honestly, like
what's their livelihood? It's after you're. I mean, I'm close to retirement, right? And so that's one of those things. Tromba saying no. I know she says that I can't retire, but she keeps creating points issues for me to where I can't actually get there quite there.
I'm just fixing your points.
I'm not quite over the goal line yet. So and it keeps getting moved back. So but it's one of those things where I don't know. I love this. I love that, you take pride in that, and that you saw it and you were like, hey, at first I'm like, I have no idea what this is. But now someone, again, that's looking at retirement, down the road is like, oh, crap, I want somebody in there that, number one, enjoys the air condition, but also enjoys, they look at it and they go, hey, I know what I got here. Mm-hmm. Like, I know what I need to do, and I know the responsibilities on me.
Right.
So what about like you ever go back to Chicago and someone's like, hey man, I'll think about joining up?
All the time, but they never. It's usually just
what advice do you give them? Like if it's,
I always tell them go to reserve route all the time, because all of my friends back home, I know that they can't deal with the active duty lifestyle is a little bit different. I mean, reservists, obviously we're all still in the military, we're all still a family, but I think it's a little bit more lax here, and I think 2 days out of the month, for some people, is easier for them to deal with. All right, for 2 days, I need to go in, and it's going to be yes, sir, yes, ma'am. I'm going to have to, take orders and take it with a smile on my face. Some people just aren't able to do that for an entire month or whatever. So start reserve. If you really like it, then you can always go over to active. I always say that. That's one of my advice. And then figure out what you want to do and shoot for that ASVAB score. The fact that I came in when I came, I didn't know anything about the military. I just took the test and they
So
gave
no
me
family history, military, anything like that.
zero. I didn't even know anybody really in the military. I didn't even know what it was really about. It was just, I know this can help with school. Why not? I'll take a shot at it. And so I would suggest know what you're getting into to those people who are thinking about getting in, and have a job in mind and just shoot for that ASVAB score. And once you do that, the rest
What do
is
you
easy.
give, Josh? Well, first off, in Muncie do people they qualify to do them? I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
I don't claim Muncie. Just so you know, I don't actually live in Muncie. That's just the only place that you guys will know what I'm talking about when I say I live in Daleville. It's in between Muncie and Anderson.
Yeah, that's worse, I think.
You just made
it is not worse.
Chills. He got chilled. Like, Daleville.
He's like, take the AC off me.
I'm opposite of you though. I would tell people active duty.
Yeah,
and
that's
just because
what about you?
So I think it's different, right? So
I was looking for a short answer.
It depends.
Okay.
Yeah.
So finish what you were going to say, John.
It depends on the person, right? Okay. For instance, Trainee Morris that just left this morning to go to basic training that's going to come to public affairs office.
Yep.
We've had multiple conversations about whether the reserves or active duty was right for her. Of course, I would love to have her in our office, but if active duty is the route that's going to be better for her, more opportunities within this career
She's
field.
also got a college degree.
She does have a college. I told you she's going to be my boss someday.
Wow. Yeah.
But I think my biggest thing, like if I'm talking to someone that's considering joining the military, or they don't even have to be considering it, maybe you're in a bad spot. Mm-hmm. Every time I will tell someone, use the military.
Yeah.
You don't have to join because, my family all did it, or I have all the, use the military. If you're in a crappy situation, you know what the easiest way out is? Join the military. Yeah. They're going to teach you a skill. And get you out of whatever situation you're in.
It's kind of our job as NCOs and senior NCOs to then pour in patriotism.
Right.
You'll start. We've talked about this before. Is you start for one reason.
Yep.
But you stay for another.
Mm-hmm. Right.
The start and stay are totally different.
Right.
Those DNTF members over there that are working with Sergeant Saunders, they're starting for one reason. But talk to them in 10 years, and they'll have different reasons why they're still here. What were you going to say? It depends. What does it depend on?
Well, so what I was going to say is that it really does depend because, so I have a lot of parents, sometimes I'll wear like my Air Force shirt out.
Yeah.
And they'll be like, well, can you convince my child to join? No, I can't.
Yeah, we don't need any more convinced people here.
This has to be something that you want to do. Especially when you're coming in, serving 6 years, it has to be something you want to do. This is a decision that comes from within, right? So if you want to do it or you feel like you want to do it, then just do it. When I joined, a lot of people said women joining the military are running away from something, which is absolutely
so what are you
false.
running from?
Nothing.
Oh, okay.
I'm not running from anything, right? Right. But so I think that's a perception sometimes of women joining the military. Excuse me. And it really depends on the situation. Do they want to go to school? What is your end goal? Once you give the end goal, then we can definitely talk about, the differences in the reserve, guard, active duty. Obviously the reserve is the best in my opinion. But every situation warrants a different response.
Yeah. I also suggest a lot of times, again, I'm a guy that's, hey, do what you can only do right now. Right. And so I'm a big pusher of, hey, go to active duty and see what that's like. Let them, and then from there, you can come back to the reserve. But I think sometimes in the reserve, if people are just straight reservists that have never been active duty, they don't sometimes appreciate what we have here. So that piece that you're talking about is, hey, things are a little more relaxed, or hey, maybe we don't sweat the small stuff as much, or whatever that may be. They don't get that.
Yeah.
Right. Because that's from day one for them. And so then what happens is it's, like any teenager that you may have is if you give them a little, then they're like, well, let's keep taking this, somewhere else. And let's keep going down this. So you were active duty originally?
Nope. I was not. Reserve? I joined reserve, but again, have been every status like you.
Yeah. I know what your answer is. Did you answer on one of the other podcasts? Alaska was your favorite assignment.
Oh,
huh?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but that's and that probably plays a role in when someone is asking me like reserves or active duty, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to say active duty because of the opportunities that I had in
Never would have
Alaska.
been there. Yeah, never would.
And,
Yeah.
and well, just by being stationed there, I mean, you get operators from every service coming up there, and like as public affairs, we get to go out with them.
Yeah.
And it just but those don't exist everywhere. So if I'm telling you a story and it sounds awesome and you're like, then I want to do active duty. If you're at Grand Forks, North Dakota, you're probably not going to be doing that stuff.
What about you? Favorite assignment? I think I know the answer to this one too.
Well, so I feel like it's very cliche, but I feel like every assignment, if you asked me while I was there, was my favorite assignment.
Yeah, they each bring something different, huh?
Yeah, if you ask me now, this is my favorite. When I was at Robbins, I mean, they all, for different reasons, have been my favorite assignments.
Every once in a while, I'll send her like senior master sergeant jobs that are, in her career field and stuff. And she's like, why are you trying to get me to leave? I love it here. And I'm like, I'm not. I'm trying to, provide opportunities. I agree with you. So I look back at places where people hated it, right? Holloman. I was at Holloman and we loved it. But it was for a different reason, than a lot of people. And, it's the same way with Vegas. Like we loved Vegas, and people are like, well, why'd you love it so much? And I'm like, it was a great place to raise a family. Like we felt so connected there to other families that they became like family. Like we made lifelong friends through that process. And so, yeah, each one kind of holds its own piece. Even you being in for 5 years, what are the changes you see
from the beginning to
Yeah.
now? Oh man. Well, obviously the biggest change for me was being medical. COVID it flipped everything around. I mean, you can't be prepared for like a pandemic that's never happened in like the past 100 years.
Let me get the
and
book
never
here.
ending.
Let me go to the
Exactly.
CDCs. What's it say about pandemic?
Exactly.
Control F pandemic. Nothing.
Yeah, tech school didn't have that as one of the courses. So that was a huge change, just adjusting to that. For the whole clinic, all of us, we were just like, all right, how do we...
Put a lot of strain on you guys.
It did, but it was, how do we continue doing what we usually do just now that, we are a clinic, we are a medical sort of treatment facility, but we're not at the same time. So which rules do we copy from the other hospitals that are going on active duty side? Which ones don't apply to us? How do we best take care of Grissom, right? Like how do we, to make sure we're not just doing what everybody else is doing, make sure we're tailoring it to Grissom Air Reserve Base, making sure everybody's able to get greened up IMR wise. As far as just in general, I think morale has gone up. Maybe it's just because my morale has gone up since I first got in, so I'm just assuming
you're an
everybody's
influencer.
maybe that's what it is.
Driving morale.
Just the more you're here, obviously, the more people you meet, and I look forward to coming here more than I did at the very beginning. At the very beginning, it was just something I had to do. This weekend I have to be at Grissom.
It's a means to an end, right? Like in the beginning, yeah.
And obviously, I like to know so that I'm here full time now. So I would say morale is a big thing.
Yeah, that's that change, right? Is why you're here, and then why'd you stay is totally different. What do you think? What's the things that you've seen change, Sergeant Tromba?
A lot has changed since I've been here. I think the support, we've always had good support from leadership, but I tell you all the time, I appreciate, we come up with these crazy ideas and our leadership team is very supportive of them. So just the new, just like, what do you call it? The disc frisbee,
frisbee golf.
Just different
Frothing,
things. The school,
froth course.
the froth course, the school.
Yeah, college is going to become
those
here.
type of things that things that we bring. It's just always supportive, and I think that the morale has changed.
What about like we've watched the dress and appearance.
That's what I was going to say. Just think about how many changes within, the last year and a half. Yeah. I mean, more changes in the last year and a half than the previous 10 years.
A lot of that
career.
is Chief Bass driving, that accelerate change and changes that probably were needed for a long time.
And yes, I would agree. But then when there's so much at the same time, it almost makes you uncomfortable. Like, whoa, what just happened to what I got used to? It almost seems completely different now.
Yeah. It's interesting too, talking to people, even like the female hair standards where they can wear their hair down. And a lot of females are like, I don't like it, and then you meet these other females, they're like, I love it. Like, and so even that piece. And
I'm just going to tell you, I absolutely love having my hands in my pockets.
I love
It's
it.
the greatest.
I used to call them guard mittens all the time. It's like, I have to put my guard mittens on. It's like,
You don't realize how much you love putting your hands in your pockets until you can't do it.
right.
Yeah. You're like, I never even thought about how
And
much I like doing
I
this.
think it says something about you can't walk with your hands in the pocket. And so now it's no longer like when I stand in front of people, I used to have to be really conscious because I'd put my hand in my pocket when I talk to them. So I'd be real self-conscious about that. Now I find myself like, when I read that, I was like, who walks with their hands in their pocket?
Everyone.
Me. That's
Yeah,
like it's like when COVID started, right? And you're like, I didn't realize how much I cough in public.
Right.
Like,
Yeah. No, for sure.
Until you can't cough, then you're trying to hold that thing in.
You're like dying. You're like,
I don't think this is good for me, but
Yeah, your eyes are watering. You're behind that mask, and like, you okay? Like, this meeting's touching.
it's almost like you got to relearn the AFIs though, because you got so used to them. I mean, that was your whole career. They did not, if they changed, they were very small changes. And then all of a sudden
It's
and then it's even hard. Like, hey, I don't think you're allowed to do that. Actually, I am. And you're wrong. You should read the AFI.
Right.
Like, oh,
So
that's
now it's
embarrassing.
more of an ask, right? Is like we expect our airmen to be a little more educated now with the rapid change, right? And those pieces. I try to put that stuff out and make sure that we stay at it. You guys do a good job with public affairs of sending that stuff out. But do you think we're changing for the better?
I do, especially when it comes to the EPRs.
Oh yeah. So going to narrative instead of bullet.
I don't see it. And maybe I make some people upset here. I just think that the bullet thing was such not a waste of time, but it took so much more time than it needed to take for what it was.
Yeah, I picture that to be a, one of those evolutions that wasn't meant to take place. Like, hey, if you abbreviated this word and then put these numbers in here, and then next thing you know, every word's abbreviated, and there's, whatever sentence structure that was. I don't have any idea who came up with that idea with the dashes and everything else. Like, so who's the random person that did this? I think sometimes that stuff is like, as a joke, let's suggest this.
Right.
and then it sticks and you're like,
But I love the fact, we're getting ready. We'll push the email out that our second quarter awards will be all in plain English. Like it's just a narrative format to where, if you have an airman that comes in and does great things and you write up a 1206 for them, even if they don't win, they can now take that 1206, go back to their civilian boss, their family or whatever, and say, hey, ever wonder what I'm doing on the weekends? Here it is.
Have you ever tried to your own EPR, tried to decipher that and put it on a resume?
Impossible.
It's impossible.
It's impossible.
The way that they were written, it's like, I don't know how to translate this to make it so that someone will understand, someone that's not in the military.
So I used to, when I'd be working on 1206s or EPRs at home, I would read a bullet to Leah and I'm like, man, I've been working on this bullet. This is a good one. I read it to her and she'd be like, I have no idea what you just said.
you did what?
Yeah. She's like, what? Is that English? Like,
Right.
what are you talking about?
You're over here on Google typing in acronyms.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know what that means.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't have to do all that to write
No.
a good EPR for your airmen. I think that affects the airmen. Like if your supervisor, if it's a chore to write an EPR, then I think you're directly affecting the quality of the EPR that airman is getting. No one should have to be like, all right, I have to set aside 3 hours to crank out, 2 EPRs. Because then, hour 2 hours and a half, that person's not going to have the same.
Right. And is that efficient, effective use of your time?
No.
Someone told me they spent 40 hours working on their APR. I was like, what are you doing? Like,
Were they?
Even
what they-
three, that's why I'm like,
you know
3
what they were
hours.
doing? They were trying to get all of the bullets to the first letter spell something on the way down.
Well,
Yeah.
and it's all the white space, right? Like,
It's
who came up with that? Like, who came up with the idea?
But it
Of,
has to be to the very end.
So
That's why I use like the little half space.
Yeah. That's the greatest thing. You learn it, and now we're going to narrative, so you won't need it anymore.
Gotcha.
Gotcha.
we just keep you on your toes.
Yeah.
I do think that there's a lot of change. I think looking at these development pieces too is development especially even over the last 5 years, has really changed in what we're requiring of airmen and that development. And, I look back and I can't think of anyone who, Tom Fasola was the only one that I can remember of, is that an airman that I knew that had a degree. I never knew an airman
Now
that had
everyone
now.
does.
I mean, we just sent someone to basic training today that has just graduated on Saturday with their bachelor's.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, this is, development piece. And I think sometimes we miss the mark. And I know that I have missed the mark in communicating that, of just now we have to push development so hard, because I want to make sure that whatever you want, Sergeant Douglas, like, you're going to be competitive for it. But we can't get there unless we do this development piece, right? And I think sometimes it's like, here goes Chief talking about his development stuff. And it's like, it doesn't help me any. Like, that's not anything I get credit for. I don't get credit if you go get your CCAF or any of that stuff. But what it does do is when you come to me and you say, hey, I really want to, I met this. Are you married?
No.
So I really met this, person that's in Texas, and there's a job down there, and I really want this job because I want to move down there. And then we look at your records and we're like, you've done zero development. You're not even going to be competitive for this. I hate that.
Right.
I want it to where it's like you can compete for your own jobs. Like there should be no one that comes into Grissom and applies for one of our jobs that beats out one of our people. Because we should be that competitive. Like, we should be the one, like, we know what it takes. So let's get competitive after it. And likewise, I think if we do that here, that will also make us competitive if you so choose to go, somewhere else. But that's a great thing about the reserve, is you don't have to. But I think there's a shift in that development piece, which the why hasn't shifted with it.
Right.
The why is just, here's another stupid Air Force program. Here we go. Like, here's another CBT. Here's another, instead of looking at, we're in the smartest Air Force we've ever been in.
Yep.
The airmen that are coming in are smarter than the airmen that were coming in when I was, mainly because I was there. But
I'm glad you said it.
Yeah, beat you to it. But
it's so hard to see the importance of it until you're applying for that job. It's really hard, because like you could tell as many airmen as you want that until they're like applying for that Texas job because of that person, and they're not competitive. Then they're like, oh, shit.
And it's everything they want is there, right?
Exactly. It's tough, but people aren't telling you these things for no reason. You're not harping on development for, like you said, it doesn't affect you any. So
yeah, believe me, I would love to just sit back and talk about sports and hang out and fishing and hunting and whatever is important to you. Screen printing shirts or something. I don't know, whatever's important. She does do that. Yeah. I know those things, but all those things, like, I would love to just sit back and do those, but that would be way more enjoyable for me. But the thing is I can't stand the thought of thinking you're going to miss an opportunity because I didn't inspire you or motivate you to go do those things. Even if you're pissed off at me, at least you're going to be ready if that comes around the corner.
I think the follow through is also very important. So people come to my office and I'll always be like, give them some sort of homework. Like, did you do this? Did you do that? Yeah. Or they'll come back and I'll ask them about it again and they'll be like, why do you remember that? But the follow through, right? Like, so I'm telling you or maybe giving you advice for a reason, right? So I might harp you all the time, but again, it's those opportunities sometimes rely on something like your CCAF, or you might be applying for the same job as somebody who has senior enlisted joint PME and you don't. That could be.
We're facing it right now with STEP.
The time.
Right. So we can go through and I can go through and look at like all the people that submitted for step 2, like promotions. And I can be like, this person's not going to be competitive. And you're just like, well, why? Well, they didn't do any of the optional stuff. They've hit all the minimums, but you got to figure all the people that are wanting to compete for this, like that have the desire, like, hey, I need to make this because I need to provide for my family, or my wife can't work. The people that want to, And like you said, that's huge. Like I didn't even really think of that as like, how do you relay that to an airman that doesn't have, right? That's like, I'm going college. I'm going, I don't know that I'm even going to do this in 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
How do you motivate those people?
It's tough, but I mean, that's why I think mentorship is so important. And like if they see it happening through, because a lot of the things I've learned is because I saw somebody who I looked up to or somebody who I learned from going through it, right? And if you see it in real time, like a member who's serious about their development, going to school, making sure things happen, or being passed up for a promotion that they thought they deserved. If you see it happening, you're like, okay, this is real. I think he deserved that and he didn't get it. Let me make sure when I get to that point, I'm actually in a position where it doesn't happen to me. So that's why I think you should grab somebody, put them under your wing if you can. If you see an airman around here who you feel like they're not able to, it doesn't compute yet for them.
Mm-hmm.
Take them under your wing and just have them watch you. You don't even have to tell them that stuff because sometimes watching is better than hearing it.
I think mentorship's big, but friendship might be bigger.
Yeah.
If you're friends with everyone that you work with, obviously still professionally, but if you're friends with everyone, then they're going to listen to stuff you say, and vice versa. You're going to listen to things that they say. Mm-hmm. And it's much easier to say like, hey, I'm not saying this because I'm your supervisor. I'm saying this because I'm your friend.
Yeah.
And then you can have those conversations where I'm saying this as your friend. And then other times I'm saying this as your supervisor.
It's on full display with us, right? Is I can get up there and give a speech at commander's call or whatever, or an e-call. And the people that know me and know my heart and know they're like, oh yeah, like that was the people that don't, they're like, he's a jerk, or he's out of his mind, and so I think that is huge to your credibility and talking those things. And I truly believe that it takes it at the friendship level. I think sometimes we talk about, well, it's at a lower level. It's not at a lower level. It's at a friendship level. Mm-hmm. Whoever is influenced those individuals, those need to be the ones. And I think a lot of times that's where, as we become NCOs and senior NCOs, if we just always be like, well, we're doing this because the Air Force said we had to, then people aren't going to buy in. But if we dig into it and we're like, okay, I agree with this or I don't agree with this, but here's how it would affect you. Here's how it's affected me, right? And I was a guy that came late to the game in development, real late in my career. And I will tell you, one of the hardest things that I had to do was set up my own dinner table and tell my own kids and my wife that I didn't get a job because of something I didn't do. Because I knew they were going to ask. And so I was like, I might as well fess it up and use it as a learning lesson or learning a lesson or, learning point is like, hey, this is why you do the things you don't necessarily want to do now so that you can do the things that you want to do later.
Right.
So the Air Force, we'll say system can knock you down and it can also raise you up. Mm-hmm. But do you feel like the Air Force has legitimately made you a better all around person? And what I mean by that is like, so you go to basic, right? We talked about it this morning when Training Morris was leaving, and all these things are instilled in you for 8.5 weeks, I think is what basic is now. And then you leave there. Has the Air Force made you a better person over 8.5 weeks?
So I will say for me, I grew up in a very strong Christian home. We didn't have a lot of money. My parents worked hard. But I always knew I was loved. I had very strong Christian values and stuff. So for me, I think that initial take was I went the opposite direction. As I found a lot of people that weren't like me and that didn't grow up like me. And I was like, this is interesting. So I found myself, and that's where that whole, like I said, is I ran into it really hard. But it was like partying and, the drinking and the all those pieces. And so I think I found the wrong, but I was seeking it, I think. the wrong crowd. And so I think there was a time period or a time in there where I think if you would have looked at my life before the Air Force and looked at my life, when I was an airman, I probably became a worse person. But then what happened was, I had a guy, a senior master sergeant Luke Reisdorf, set me down and he said, "Hey man, one of the things that I love is partying with you." Like,
good time, Charlie.
it is a lot of fun. Like, there is nothing that we can come up with that you won't try or do, or everybody always has more fun. And he goes, "But you need to choose. Do you want to continue to be that guy? Or do you want to be an airman? Because those two aren't going to continue to mix." And it hit me like, I'm that dude. Like, I look at it, I was like, I got an LOC, I got an LOR, like, I've been in handcuffs. Like, I'm that dude. Like, I'm the dude that's, a lot of fun that everybody's probably looking at like he's a total waste of talent. And so I turned it around. And so then now I look at my life and I say, like, I'm a small town country boy from the Ozarks, and the most realistic part about that show Ozark is the characters that are from the Ozarks. Yeah, you could take everything else out of there. That none of that is realistic. But the characters from there are pretty realistic. And to think that now I'm a command chief at a wing that is almost the size of the town that I grew up in, I think, heck yeah, I've become a better person. And I look at what it's provided my kids and the education opportunities and, all those pieces. Yeah.
Good luck topping that, Sergeant Douglas.
Yes.
Hold on. Because of the stare that Sergeant Tromba gave me, I think we should go to her next.
No, I was all about Sergeant Douglas going
but
next.
Sergeant, like, do you feel like, and it's not necessarily the 8.5 weeks at basic, right? It's your,
I don't think it's 8.5 weeks first off.
Yes, it is.
It's 8.5 weeks.
Okay, none of us, here come the old jokes. None of us are as old as you when it was 6 weeks when
That
you
was
went
6
through.
weeks. Yeah,
It's
that's
like
what I
5
was 6
weeks.
now.
Yeah, I was just down there. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
It's like 7.5.
So did I become a better person now? That's tough. I'm definitely a different person. I don't know. Better is so subjective. I'm sure there's some people in my life who would be like, you're definitely a better person. And some people who are like, no, we like old Douglas way better.
Yeah, there's a lot of friends that partied with me that's like, hey, dude, like, when you can come out partying again. Like,
exactly.
Right?
You know what? I think the Air Force combined with me, I was 21 and now, obviously I'm 26. So just getting older, and now that I'm doing the, 7 to 4, I come in, check in, and then, I go home. You just grow as a person doing that as opposed to partying. I went to Kansas that was a blur. Got home, kept partying a little bit while I went to community college for a bit. So just having the actual schedule, having to be responsible. Now I have like real responsibilities. We talked about obviously the medical records manager. So I think, that has made me a better person because now, when I mess up, it doesn't just affect me anymore. It affects the base and it affects people's lives like we talked about earlier. So now I'm more on top of it and that matters to me. So
has that spread in your life, you think?
Yeah, for sure. It's hard not to when you're in the military. I think you bring some of that responsibility home, even whether you're trying to or not. It's just, calling people sir and ma'am now. Never did. 20-year-old Doug, what? Like,
yeah,
this is ridiculous. But this is something I just take home with me. So I think I have become a better person when it comes to that. That's a tough question. I'll let Tromba.
Yeah, so mine's short. So looking back over the past 12 years, I absolutely think that the Air Force has made me a better person, a better leader, a better friend, a better mentor. It's just given so many things that have made me better.
So what do you think? Like, sorry, you didn't get the answer.
I was just gonna say I would agree with you. Sometimes it sucks that it has to hurt to get
Absolutely.
better. Because it does a lot, and it's not. And that's the thing is, like, we can sit here and talk about, this made me a better person. And somebody who's not in the military probably not going to listen to this, but if there's a chance that they do, and they're like, man, that's so awesome. It doesn't come without hurt. Like
Well,
it's not just super easy to get
Right.
to be a better person.
Right. I'm not a better person because it was all roses the whole time.
Right.
There were a lot of horrible things that happened. And, you know, I'm the career advisor now, but there were times where I'm like, do I want to do this?
Right.
Anyway, you know, right?
Well, there's probably still times where you're like, can somebody advise me on my career? Like
right.
who's...
It's like who asks the asker, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I always, when Sergeant Orozco was here, I always like, who's asking you?
Let's not
Are
talk
you
about him
okay?
anymore.
Right? We don't care about him. Senior Orozco, we don't care about you. But yeah, so like who asks the asker? But again, the friendships here at Grissom, and they are friendships. People are always asking, I feel like, about everybody. I can't walk down the hallway without somebody. How you doing? You know, like sometimes I'm just like, just trying to run, you know, but.
So we all have these little things, and we all see where maybe our lives are better, and we've grown, we've matured. Where do we, and this is a corporate we, as in 434th Air Refueling Wing, the members, where do we need to mature? Where do we need to maybe implement some things that we're like, this is direction?
Yeah, maybe develop. I don't know necessarily mature, but
I think
okay.
and some of it may be not even new developments. It maybe go back or grow or do this again. You know, for me, I look at that and I'm like, we have a phenomenal sports complex over there: football field, basketball courts, tennis courts. When we did the stand down day last year and we used those, there's still people talk about it. And I'm like, why don't we have on a Saturday after UTA a softball game? You know, why don't we get together more? And sometimes I feel like we're missing that. Let's start with that friend feel. Sometimes we're missing that. And I think Chalks is a good, a place to start with that. But again, we got a Frisbee golf course. You know how many people I've seen using it?
But it's been cold, so.
But why not have? Yeah,
maybe.
80s all next week.
We'll hope.
Yep.
We'll hope.
So
I won't be here next week.
but to me, I look at that and I'm like, okay, I think there was a lot of things that took place, and there was a lot of goodness that came from COVID. We had to adapt and we had to change and we had to evolve in some places that we probably should have a long time. But one of the things that I think was bad is we all went to our domains and we got really comfortable with just being in our domain. Not talking to the neighbors, not talking to I want to get back to, I want to get back to you saying, I'm a better, friend. I'm a better neighbor. You live in downtown. Like I'm a better, you guys are neighbor. Yeah.
I got you.
You don't feel obligated to that. So I'm a better friend. I'm a better neighbor. I'm a better community member, church member, brother, sister, husband, wife, any of those things that just happens to be an airman.
Right.
And being that, I think sometimes we think about that and we're like, well, yeah, I want to be that down in Kokomo or Peru or Muncie or where's that other place? Daleville, right? I want to do that there, but what about here?
Right.
And so I look at that, I guess for me to answer my own question is, that's a piece where I would like for us to, and I think it's a get back to, because you listen to the older generation that's been here a little bit longer, Chief Cassidy.
We love you, Chief Cassidy.
You'll hear him talk about how they used to do softball tournaments, and they used to, on Saturdays go right over to the golf course and golf after,
I think that's the answer right there, because I bet if you ask people out of the full-time staff and just people on base, how many of them are in like some random softball league that they go home to, I bet you would have enough people to start one here. It's just making this the place where you can bring your family, bring your friends. It doesn't have to just be someone who's working here full time. You know what I mean? If you have a friend who wants to play, bring them out and we congregate here. And even if you don't want to play, just coming to watch a softball game where it's, maintenance versus, personnel or whoever it is. Because once all those people are in the same place and we're not working, we're actually just having fun watching the game. That's when you're going to start seeing friendships and, hey, what are you doing after this? Then that's when people go to, grab drinks afterwards, and then that's how the friendships just start.
Yeah, or
It's a
go
snowball
to
effect.
do a dinner club or to go do those things,
Exactly.
right? And it's, and I think that's where when I go to get my records and there's stuff missing, that I'm not like, that's Jonah Douglas, man.
Yeah, right.
That
And
dude.
He's
it's
much more apt to help you.
Yeah, it's more of I know him.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't do that.
Right.
He didn't do that on purpose. Or
Right.
he didn't do, we have more grace when we go to try to, get, hey, why wasn't this done? Well, I know that dude. Or, hey, I know somebody over there because I played softball with him. Let me give him a call real quick. No, let me set you up with that.
Yeah.
So.
And that was my same thing too. But the response to the original question was not necessarily like softball or something, but something more to do after work. Or even
It's hard because we all live in different communities, right?
Right.
Is you live an hour and some change. Well, if you had a normal car, not a Prius, it'd probably be an hour. But so hour and a half south. But and you guys, we live in Kokomo, right? So it'd be easier for us to be like, hey, let's meet up at Sun King, or let's go to a Jackrabbits game, or let's go to a Kokomo Bobcats game, right? But then we're asking you to stay here longer and drive further.
No, on the UTA.
Yeah.
If we're talking on the UTA, if you did something where, because even if you're taking softball, for example, you've got 3 months. So you've got 6 days of a UTA. If you did Fridays and Saturdays, right? Then you can still have a league.
Yeah.
Something where it doesn't have to be softball though. Like when we had the stand down day, there was nothing I didn't feel like there was anything that was specifically organized.
Well, we
it
had
was just
tricycle
all
races.
this stuff. Well, I did see
What?
that.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I was
just all
crushing
this
souls.
stuff to do.
Really?
Yeah, you're right. It was more about walking to the different places and just seeing different people who are here on base. It wasn't about a specific activity.
So I feel like we could go forever, but I'm the person that has to edit this, and we're already at an hour. So
Okay.
Stand by for buzzkill.
Yeah.
I know. Gosh, we were just getting into the good conversation. Thanks.
Do you guys not think
Just
that it's
get warmed
warm in
up.
this room?
Just get
Thanks,
warmed up.
Weaver. Well, we got the AC guy, so we know
yeah.
that he's hot over
The
there.
AC is kind of lacking over here at 596.
Yeah, that's right.
So
That's right. If it works anywhere.
you know that I've been talking to you a while about trying to figure out some segment at the end of this podcast, like before the What Are You Loving, where we can kind of maybe field some, not necessarily questions. They don't have to be. They can be questions, or they can just be topics.
Call in.
And well, long time listener, first
First
time
time
caller.
caller.
That's what Jordy said he was going to do, and change his voice hello.
Oh yeah, because I'm sure that the British accent wouldn't
Yeah.
be a dead giveaway. But
Yeah, and I've
So
heard
fun.
his English accent. It's not good.
so
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
so
Edit that out.
we are going to set up this Google Forms. I actually already set it up, but I don't know if I did it right. So I'll have Tromba check it before we send it out to the masses. But it's going to give people an opportunity to essentially anonymously give us topics or questions to discuss. And I thought long and hard about the name of this. And I'd like to call it Fuel for Thought instead of Food for Thought.
There you go.
Yeah.
So
I know.
witty.
I'm genius.
that's actually
Genius.
pretty good. They're going to give
So-
you a hard time.
Genius.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. So
You don't learn that at Kansas.
Well, you don't learn that in Muncie either.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
Sure.
Don't Google that because it's probably already. Yeah.
So, since we didn't have the forms set up yet, I came up with actually, you know what? Tromba came up with the first one.
Okay.
We'll see if you like it or not
All right.
before we say
So
who came up
is
with
it just me
So
talking
it's
about
not
this?
just
or-
you. So what
Okay.
I'd like to do is for all of us to have some input for it, and then in the future, if there's just one guest, then it would be
Yeah.
the three of us.
I'd love the organic answers of this.
Yeah. So in the future, I will be the only person that knows the topic. So it will definitely be an
I don't
organic
know the-
response.
I don't know the topic.
You do not know the topic. The other two in here do currently.
okay.
But
That's probably
so
cool.
yeah, blindsided. So the topic, and there's two parts to this. The topic is core values.
Mm-hmm.
And the first question is, if you had to pick one core value, only one that you think is the most important, what would it be and why? Sergeant Douglas first.
For me, it's easily integrity first, just because that's something before I even got into the Air Force. That was something I was big on, just loyalty, integrity, that type of stuff, just having a code. So for me, that's an easy one.
What about you, Sergeant Tromba?
So mine is definitely excellence in all you do, because I feel that when you're excellent excellent in everything that you do, it allows you to have integrity or service before self. So yeah, mine would be excellent. Just encompasses the other two.
Michael?
Yeah, you go.
So I agree with Sergeant Douglas. I think integrity, just like what you just said, I think integrity is at the core of all those things. Is if you have integrity, because I think of integrity as also accountability, right? And so that integrity is what drives you to those things. And integrity for me, it's a big one.
So the whole point of this thing was for everyone to not necessarily agree.
Yeah.
Hopefully there is some disagreement here and not saying that anyone's wrong, but you think differently than I think, and you think differently than I think. And so it's good that we've got it, because mine would be integrity as well, because I feel it's the same thing.
So we get to vote Tromba off the island?
We can't vote her off the island.
Right?
No, you're right. No one's saying that you're wrong, and no one can say that we're wrong. Like that's your, except for Sergeant Douglas, he says you're wrong.
Yeah.
But you needed an extension. Let me delete that.
But yeah. So you feel that excellence in all we do encompasses all of the core values, and we would feel the same way about integrity first. And but so here, go ahead. What you got?
No, that's a tough one, because
it is tough.
It's
it was only supposed to be to you, but then it came to all of us. But
no. We talked about this beforehand.
So I think I would argue pretty hard that I'm in my head right now, and I won't go through it on here. In my head right now, I'm going through all of the discipline issues that we have going on right now, all of the issues that we're facing, all these things that we're doing. And to me, it all comes back to integrity.
But it could also come back to excellence.
I can see that, but I think excellence is a byproduct of integrity and accountability, right?
But integrity, so when you're breeding an environment of excellence, right?
Uh-huh.
So when we're hoping for all of our people to be excellent, we are fostering an environment that allows them to have the integrity. You're not excellent if you don't have integrity. Or
sure you do. Look at
you can be excellent.
Look at what's Antonio Brown. That dude's phenomenal at what he does.
Sure.
It's zero integrity. Like it's
correct. I can agree with that. But I think for us in the Air Force, being excellent fosters the other two core values. Integrity kind of votes off service before self. Because to me, I don't know.
Only reason I would kind of disagree with you is because I think there are people, and I'm talking about myself, that's how I know, who started off excellence. I wasn't able to hit that, coming into the door. But the integrity part is what made me keep shooting at it and saying, hey, Captain Triplett, can I come in for more days? That way I can work on my program, and maybe I can get to that excellent point where I'm upholding that core value. If the integrity is not there, then you don't care.
But is that service before self?
Oh, man. He just messed my head up.
Well, what does service before self mean to you? Because everybody, it means something different.
Whoa. Here, now we're about to move into the next question here with that.
I thought it was one question. I
said there were two questions.
But that's a valid thing because
it is. Well, okay, so because we can still get into that with this next one, and this is the uncomfortable one, so get ready. Do you think that the core values sometimes are used as leverage, not just something that you personally want to live by? Do you think that the core values can be used as leverage to make you do something?
Yeah, so I think that our core values is kind of like that. If you think of it as, a lot of times people will talk about a moral compass, right? And they'll talk about, well, what's your moral compass? And so a lot of times I think we use those core values as the moral compass, as when we're interpreting the AFIs, when we're looking at discipline, when we're looking at, the mission and who we want to be and stuff like that. We use that, those core values as the moral compass. Because if you and I say that the moral compass it's the magnetic pull of the compass. So if you have no magnetic pull on a compass is just a paperweight. And if you have a wrong magnetic pull on it, then it's going to give you false information. So you've got to have something that is almost like this is the magnetic pull that we will judge all of the compass headings on to see whether you're headed in the right direction. And so I think it is used as leverage. I think it's used as, I mean, I could tell you 100% that there's times where I don't feel like having service before self. I don't feel like there's times where I'm like, this is good enough. But I look at those core values and I think, as a command chief, especially, I'm judged by those. My work, my body of work, who I am should be compared against those. And so, yeah, I think there's times where it motivates me to be that culture that you talked about. Is it breeds a culture where I'm like, I got to do what's right. Like, I got to do what's right here, because it's like anything else. I call it moral fatigue. At some point, you get your life. There's so many things going on that you get in this moral fatigue area, and it's like, I'm so wore down that my morals are starting to be like, okay, could I just pass this off as good enough? And instead of, I think now you have this atmosphere where you're like, nobody's going to tolerate that. Colonel Pemberton's not going to tolerate that for me. I work with him every day, or even Sergeant Transfiguration. AJ's not going to let me get by with doing something halfway. She's going to turn it right back to me and be like, this is not what we want to put out to our airmen. And so, yeah, I think so. I don't know if that answers your question.
It does. It answers it in a different way than what I was thinking about, and I'm gonna roll with that. So
yeah,
what he said, right?
Yeah, what he said.
Do you guys think so?
Well, so let me
repeat the question because I was so long-winded.
I was asking if you think that the core values get used as leverage, and I think what I meant by that though was more of, could you? And I'm not saying you to me, but that's the example we'll use here. Do you think that someone in your position uses the core values as leverage for me?
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure.
I don't mean overall.
For sure. Yeah. I'd like to motivate you, or if I'm giving a feedback to you and maybe you're not hitting the marks, am I going to leverage those things to try to get you to hit those marks?
Right. But is that subjective?
Oh yeah.
Meaning that's how you view the core values. Yep. Maybe I don't view them the same way.
And that's what I got to look at is, for me is, yes, but what I always try to turn that around and say, the standard that I'm holding you to, you should also hold me to this standard. Like there is still a, I'm asking you to have some integrity here. You should turn around now. If you see me at a point and you should be like, I'm asking you to have some, I'll give you an example of a time that I didn't have good integrity, right? So we are, and it still bothers me to this day. So this is going to be like a therapy session. I'm going to feel like this is good
you
to get
asking
off
for forgiveness. Yes. I feel like.
So I was over at the flying squadron one time when Colonel Shaw was still here, and we were having some drinks, and we were staying outside, and we were smoking some cigars, doing that, the friendship piece, right? And the national anthem came on. It didn't even start, right? And everybody took off running. And I took off running. And that is I cannot stand that. Because I'm like, I don't care if it's raining. If I'm anywhere close to the door, I will step outside to be in that. But I got caught up. I got caught up. And I end up turning around and walking back out. And of all people, Colonel Wiltsey was standing there. And she said, you better get your ass back out here. And I needed that in that moment, because I had that lack of integrity at that moment. And so, and it wasn't no judgment on the rest of the people that went inside. I understand it. I'm not saying I haven't been there. I'm just saying, for where I'm at in my life and in my career, I had a lack of integrity and accountability for that. And it was, I feel like she could have leveraged it at that point. Like, you think you're a command chief and you want to sprint inside. Like, so yeah, I think it can be used to leverage that. I don't think it's always positively used.
That might have been where the question was, but I don't necessarily want it. I think that your response was way better than anything we were going to get out of what I was thinking. Because I do think that it is sometimes negatively used, and I think that that's more upsetting than it is anything else. One
of the things I don't like is when people are like, they're not ready for the promotion. What's that even mean? You know, and the excellence and all you hit on it, and man, I love having these conversations because I get that stuff out of it. Is excellence in all you do, but there's got to be a build up to that, right? Yeah. Like Airman Douglas coming in the door, we expect him to do the exact same things that Sergeant Douglas is doing right now, right? Because you're doing excellence right now, but did we expect that on day one of you? Like, you know what I'm saying? So that's where I think we negatively use it is, you know, you screw one thing up, you miss one. And we're like, excellence all you do, man. Integrity. Like, man, you ain't showing it. And it's kind of like, well, maybe we aren't mentoring you right. Maybe we're not leading you right to get you to that point. Maybe we're not breeding that environment of excellence.
I've always thought about it as something to strive for instead of something that like, as soon as I sign this, from now on, I need to be upholding these three things, right? Because when you're coming from, you know, regular life, for me being 21, coming out of college and straight to the Air Force, it's impossible just to flip a switch. All right, now I'm excellent in everything I do and all of that type of stuff. So I always thought about it as something to just strive forward.
So I don't.
You were always goody two shoes. So go ahead.
So I don't mean it like, you know, you come in excellent. I mean it more as that's what you're striving for, right? So when you're striving for that excellence, you have integrity first. You don't come in having the feeling of service before, like you're wanting to be part of the military. You join, obviously, but is service before self something that's right away? You graduate basic and service before self. Is it? I mean,
I agree with you. I think if you look at it and again, I feel like I need to stop saying this, but I talk to my kids about this, and I feel like all these life lessons are still good. Tell them is if you aim for excellence and you miss the mark a little bit, where are you at?
Still aiming for excellence.
You're still at really good.
Still pretty awesome.
You're really, you know, like better than most. You're still at that. But if you aim for average and you miss that mark, well, now you're below average. You know, you're at those. So I agree. I think it can be misconstrued sometimes to where we put undue stress on airmen and undue pressure to hit a mark that is really unachievable. You know, so as smart as they are coming in the door now, way smarter than us that when we came in the door, that as smart as they are doing that, there's still a lot of pieces that we have, the wisdom that we have, the way things are done, the way that they don't grasp yet. So
now it's time for your segment.
All right. Yeah. So I don't know if you guys listen to it, but we do a what are you loving? So it could be anything from, hey, a new pair of shoes to I loving this jam. I'm playing it over and over on the radio, or, you know, loving this time of year, whatever. So we'll start with Josh since you've done this before. Boy. So what are you loving?
So I'm not going to lie to you. I'm racking my brain right now and hoping that I didn't say this on the last podcast because I have been in my house for a minute. Have I said anything about my house?
No.
Okay, cool. Are you lying to me?
No, because last time it was you were loving that your daughter was able to dribble and then
I
had
wanted
some
to talk
skill
about
sets.
Purdue basketball and then they got
handles.
beat that night.
That's right. Good job jinxing them.
Yeah. I didn't even say the name.
I did.
I know. Thanks. No, so we actually, it's actually been a couple months now, but we built a house. And so we finally got moved in. And right now, I am loving my deck. Spent all weekend last weekend building it, and it's awesome. And the reason it's awesome is because there's no mud coming in my house anymore.
That's awesome. That is little things like that, huh?
Yeah, the little thing. And my kids are both starting their running club actually tonight, depending on the thunderstorms. This isn't going to make any sense when someone's listening to it next Wednesday.
Yeah, and it's super sunny out and 86.
Right.
That's what it's supposed to be next Wednesday.
Okay, so the current temperature today, the 3rd of May. So, but
all right.
Yeah.
Either one of you got it? What are you loving?
What's going on right now? For me, it's just NBA playoffs. I'm a big basketball fan, so this is a
Who's your team?
cool time of the year.
Bulls.
The Bulls, but
Yeah.
obviously that didn't go the way we wanted it to. But
So who you rooting for now?
Boston, that defense.
Probably I like Boston.
Yeah.
I'm rooting for Boston. But yeah, just getting home, chilling for a little bit, then grabbing something to drink, watching the game. So that's what I'm loving right now. I'm just relaxing.
I like watching Memphis right now.
Yeah, Memphis is a lot of fun.
Those dudes are exciting.
Yeah, a lot of fun.
Yeah. Not Brooklyn, I'll tell you that, or 76ers. Or
Yeah, I don't like either of those teams.
Yeah.
We're on the same page.
Yeah, all right.
I right now I'm just loving the friendships and the people here at Grissom. With COVID like gone, knock on wood, and the opportunities to just go different places and see different things.
Yes, I'm shaking my head at you. You just jinxed us.
Yeah.
He's like, oh gosh. But yeah,
I can't
I'm just
take another
loving
one.
I'm just loving the people of Grissom. We have really amazing people here. And when I first got here, people are like, Grissom, cornfields, but we really have awesome people and I'm just loving it.
That's a good answer. That's my answer too. People
I'd like
Grissom
to
that are
change my
listening.
answer.
No,
Yeah.
like I'm serious. I feel like, we don't talk about how awesome our people are that
Well,
much.
that's kind of my job. So you saying I don't do my job?
Yes. No,
That's fair.
No.
Last time we did this, it was like, where's your favorite vacation spot? And then we say stuff, and Carol Pemberton goes, wherever my wife is. Yeah. That's
a good answer.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to say. I thought we excluded that.
I was getting there.
Yeah, I was getting that. Man, I spent some time in the garage this weekend. And
The garage.
And built from just looking at it, and some running boards from my 1953. And I just love that stuff. So I'm an extrovert when I'm here at work and even in my personal life for the most part. But man, there's nothing that recharges me more than building something. And that's why I have so many old vehicles. So yeah, so loving that and that I may possibly take the top off both the Broncos this next week.
Oh, okay, there we go. Real quick, can I say what I'm not loving?
Yeah.
So
It's a new segment.
2 consecutive weekends, members of the medical clinic have decided to move to new places.
Oh, so you've been moving.
So, and those people, I guess they have no friends. So the only people who have been assisting
I'll reach out to them.
in the move is me and the other member who are
Yeah.
there.
Do you have a truck?
Yeah, they had a truck, thankfully.
Yeah.
But and if those who know, there's like 3 people in the clinic right now. It's Master Sgt and
Yeah.
Tech Sergeant Golden, and they both decided without, just to move consecutive weekends.
Well, yeah. When you're young too, you're almost obligated to that. Like when you get to
of
be
course.
over 40, what I tell
Hard
people
no.
now is, hey, I have a 24-foot enclosed car hauler. You're more than welcome to use it.
Right.
They're like, well, can you bring it over? No. You got to have a
come
truck
grab it.
and you got to come get it. Like I'm not,
Exactly.
I don't move myself either. So
Yeah. So housewarming at one of their houses this upcoming UTA, they're gonna have to decide who, but
yeah.
They're gonna have to repay that
You're
somehow.
initiating it.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right.
This is
I
the
like
formal
it.
announcement.
Yeah, all listeners
The
are
address
fuel.
is.
All
Don't be a
listeners
Grissom
invited.
all.
Tell us is like,
Why
why
shoot out a focal point?
Yeah.
Why is everyone coming to my house with a plan?
Well, I'll tell you, we love having you guys here. We appreciate it. And I gained so much insight. I love listening to your guys' experience. And so please get out there and let's build some friendships. I think that's what the big takeaway was. Let's figure it out and let's be the people that initiates these different activities and stuff like that. So thanks for being here. Thanks for taking time out of your day.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks.
All right, great conversations, man. I loved. I hadn't really spent much time with Sergeant Douglas, so great getting to know him a little bit better and hear a little bit of his background and his perspective. I love different perspectives, and so we are a fan of sharing these the different perspectives that you may have, or a difference of opinion and everything in a respectable manner. And so I would encourage you guys to have those same conversations in your shop or as you're listening to this with the people that are around you, is have those conversations. And I'll tell you, in there, we hit on something that it really drives that home on sometimes the best mentorship is through friendships. What a great weekend. Again, 82 degrees or 74 degrees. What a great weekend to get out and do something, to build some friendships. And remember, a lot of times people get brought to Grissom because of a family, or because this is where they grew up, or they're coming back home, or a spouse brings them, or whatever it may be. Whatever brought them here, let's keep them here with family and friendship. And so get out and do something, enjoy each other's company, have some laughs, enjoy some sunshine, and we hope you have a great May UTA.